Alrighty. Hi guys, Kingo is here from the One Bounce Armory, and today we're here to talk about really nice looking arms. So what happens is that we have right here a 15th century, actually I think it's a late 14th century to even carry out to the mid 15th century, instead of English or Italian or German or continental, anyone actually, pretty much at that point, would be using a very similar arms harness like these ones that we see right now. Now, what this is right now is that it's a very good classic, like hard to fail example of what a really typical kind of arm harness is going to look like. We're going to be compromising of the upper cannon, which is I think they call them rear brace. I really want to call them rear brace, but it's like R-E-R-E-B-R-A-C-E, so I guess it's called rear brace. For the sake of it, because I really don't know how to pronounce these things, upper cannon, cutter, and lower cannon. So what's so important about these is that they are archers use them, foot combat men use them, parade armor use them, even men at arms will be using a very similar armor system like this. We will find them in stuff like the War of the Roses, and even armors before and later that, we could still find these. Now, what's really important is that they would have a very classic long tubular kind of upper cannon that has a hinge that you can open and close. This one here is a stainless steel version, so of course back in the days they wouldn't be stainless, so they would look a little bit different. And as you can see, the arms that this one's made for is for typically pretty big person. And so you have the opening latch, so you can get your hand through it, and when you need, you can close it. Now, there's some stylistic choice in terms of why this particular setup, in a way, has why is this plate in the front or why is this plate in the back. I'm trying to struggle with this right now. Well, it's just all personal choice. There's no really a standard for exactly how it should be made. Back then it could be made in many different ways, as long as it protects you. Some of them you see in the front, some of them you see in the side. I don't think there's any in the back, and of course some of them, like mine, this is a middle to even late 15th century Milanese, where you see that in the front is actually kind of open, and I'm going to explain that in a bit. So, as you can see that rear brace, we are going to have that classic tab that's going to be in the back, right here. Now that would get pointed to your actual jacket. There's a couple of rivet holes. So the good thing about being pointed is that your armor and the rest of your pauldron, if it's separate, you get a bigger mobility in them. Now the thing is that of course you will have your pauldron that's going to be strapped on with the rest of your arms. Typically in the English fashion, they will actually be in one complete unit where it's actually going to be riveted solid together, and it does not have any compromising lanes. Now, of course, English armor being mostly in a foot combat format, it's fantastic for it because when you wrestle, you really don't want any opening gaps. But what happens is that it has to be really well made, where the lanes are going to be really nicely articulated, which this one is it's actually pretty nice already. And of course, it has to be really nicely made or on sliding level rivet. If not, let's just say if you're doing your everyday task, drawing a bow, picking things up, you will notice that these could potentially get in the way. So whereas if you do have them floating, at least this portion right here, it has a much bigger different mobility in them. Versus, let's just say if you were to do leather tabs or sliding rivets, for a movement like this, you could probably still get a dagger or something like that underneath. So once again, the pauldron is going to be the upper part that kind of overlaps a shingling system where all the lanes kind of go down. Of course, this one is a little bit more fancier version of a pauldron. Sorry, I meant to say spalter. It's actually spalter. Spalter is smaller. Pauldron is the later on 16th century cool fantasy stuff. So sorry. Holy crap. Well, in that case, this is a spalter. So, as typical spalters, like you will also have a rondelle, like a vestibule that covers your armpit. I'm going to put this on in a bit anyway. And of course, similar fashion, you will have a upper tab. Cool, getting enough of that. And of course, you will have your side fins on your cutter or coutier or whatever you want to call it, the elbow defense. Is that you're going to have a very typical pointy end, because then when you bring your elbow, it forms a really pointy end. they have to make this because armor doesn't bend with you, right? So it's gonna be very much a point sticking out. Yeah, if you give yourself someone a really good elbow guard, I guess like an elbow you can probably knock them over, I guess. And of course, once you flex, you will get a full flex. You will get the full flex. And of course, if you notice that this is pretty much as you want. Sometimes people will say, well, why don't you bend it all the way as much as your arms where you can almost touch yourself? When you're actually being wrestled into the ground, when you are either at full flex, so full extension or full retraction, that's when it's actually very difficult to actually generate any power to get yourself out from it. Let's just say if you're at full extension, that's pretty much when people have all the gaps to actually stab you, or perhaps to even for you to need a lot more force to actually pull yourself back out. For those of you who did, dumbbell weighting, yeah, I'm sure you know what I mean. And of course, if you're full retracted, for you to push yourself back out, it's tremendously harder than, well, of course, when you're being wrestled. So this is pretty much as much as you need when you're actually fighting. When we're talking about like pole axes, lance, jousting, or even like, just everyday half sorting. Yeah, people did it. People back then, I guess they do it every day, but you know what I mean. So this is pretty much as much as you get. Some of the museum examples, you only see them going 90 degrees. Mostly because if you are on horseback, it doesn't really matter too much. You just need this. In fact, the more you lock it, the more safer it is you are. You probably might rather take that instead. So, and of course, later century, even late 15th century, you will see plates of voiders or voiders of plates. What happens is that even in the between here, commonly you can even left this open, or we would typically see chainmail voiders. Chainmail being a patch of mail gonna get sewn into your actual garment. So it's not a full. You could use a full halberd, or I think they call it halberd, but a shirt of mail. Whereas a very typical Italian fashion. Whereas English, you can have a patch of mail just being sewn where you need it. I'm probably gonna put some pictures on the side to show you guys. In any case, so from that, you will still get enough space here for your voiders of plate if you ever want to use the same armor and keep developing on that. So I quite like the 15th century style. Before I got into all the crazy Bolognese, 16th century fanciness, it's freaking amazing. You should really join it. I actually started with my suit as 15th century because I find it's the most versatile. You can do a lot of things and you learn a lot about armor just by doing that. So in that case, so from this standpoint, once again, going to rear brace, let me just finish that. You will see limbs here that can actually rotate. Now what happened is there's actually sliders. You can see that. There's actually sliders in the actual armor itself that allows you to slide in and out. So what happens is that it allows you to move your arm any way you like and not having to worry about your armor actually shifting in place. Armors are actually usually very tapered to your body, and that's actually a silhouette of your body. So if there's a lot of movement and play to it, it just probably means your armor doesn't really fit you, or it's just very uncomfortable. So unless you're talking about like a great bassinet for your helmet, that's a different story. Well, in any case, so we have our fins on the side. The fins will of course come with a strap. Now this fin perfectly protects yourself from any hits on the side, like that. And of course in your front, you can probably protect yourself for it. Now, the thing about these fins is that they often try to not to make them overly too big, or even wrap yourself in the front. There are many examples, let's say, even literally my Milanese right there, will wrap a little bit in the front. What I've noticed is sometimes when you are very close range after you parry and you want to grab the opponent, sometimes I do find it getting caught in the way. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I haven't really trained enough in that aspect. It's just a very interesting thought. Okay, and then of course moving on to the vambrace. The vambrace, this is literally what everyone calls vambrace or lower cannon, but nobody calls them lower cannon. In any case, so this is pretty much my most absolute, probably one of the reasons why I want to make a video, because look at that. If you look at that cylindrical tape right here, you see the human forearm literally displayed in armor format. Now, it's very hard to see, but if you just purely look at the silhouette, you will see that, especially in the back, you see how the line carries on an angle and then come back in? That's fantastic. This is absolutely fantastic. It's even my own suit of armor doesn't have this, and this I think this is a really nice economical armor as well, made by Aegis Armory. I should have said that a long time ago. But in any case, you see a beautiful forearm silhouette here, and it caves in and it flares back out slightly. But if not, at least you see that there is care put into this, where it's a nice arc. I just want to touch this all day long. This is rare. For any armor of even munition grade, doesn't matter, but anything off the shelf that you get, you probably won't see anything as beautiful as this. We can totally see that the craftsmen who put the work into it, really understand the human proportion, or at least eventually understand human proportion. And it's just, you can see an actual human arm in this, even if I show you in the back. Look at how from the top it comes in, and then there's a silhouette to it. It just means that that is pretty much following the human proportion, and that's absolutely gorgeous. Real armor back then will have this theory, because once again, everything is very tight to your body. When you're being buried, your effigy. Effigy is like your tombstone, where you're getting your actual person like scalped into a big alabaster piece, and that alabaster is the same size of you, and that becomes the top of your tombstone. So that would be effigy. They would actually dress the individual in armor, and because, well, it's recognizable when you're going up to heaven and you're like, I am John of so and so. You're like, yep, your effigy looks like that. You're dead in the battlefield, and you're wearing this armor. Yep, you're in. Get in. So, which is why armor is very important to actually demonstrate the actual person. And so, in real life, when this whole suit of armor is being put together, even without the person inside, you can recognize the person based on their belt and their stature. So, in that case, moving on. So, in terms of the rear brace, now we are still going to have a strapping system that opens up. Let's see. I think I'm missing one pin here. Yeah, that kind of opens up. Give me a second. There you go. Opens up like that. So the whole system opens up, and of course the top opens up as well. And of course the strapping as well, you can just take it off and put it on. So this whole thing right here, you see that. And when it opens, the fin is not too big enough that it does not interfere with you, like that. So of course when you put it on, I'm just gonna roughly put it on. You shouldn't really just do that. So like that. Even when this armor is way too big for me, it still fits a human proportion. So like the whole thing kind of goes down like that. It was absolutely freaking fantastic. So another really interesting point is that instead of strapping, there are some really nicer, finer armor that actually has no strappings. And it's not, well, then again, just because they look kind of messy in a way. Well, then again, just whatever it is. I mean, even Tobias Cowbell has strappings on this one. Okay. In any case, from this is that you will see an extra pin right over here. That little pin right here, you can actually put this in, and you can close it, and it'll clamp right in, or at least it should. These things are not easy to do because you don't want it to be easy to do, or probably see like that. Even without the strapping, this thing holds on. Why the strapping? Because in case if you get a poleaxe head, someone wedge you open, at least you have these strapping extra to kind of close you off. Eventually, there's a chance that your armor is going to start deteriorating, wearing down, or just everyday use. They are going to wear and tear. Having extra stuff in there is a benefit. It's a little bit more annoying and does not look as cool. That's subjective, really. It's up to you, man. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I have been very curious to do a video of this. Now, what happened is, can you actually draw a bow when you're wearing armor? And that's what we're going to test out. Once again, this is a really nice example of a 14th, 15th century arm harness, and it's a very typical fashion. I'm also going to be putting on a 15th century cuirass just to see how it works. Once again, I'm going to, take my garment off, point this on, put this on, and put the chest plate on, and I'll see how it goes. For 1 second. Alright guys, so here I am in my abomination of a bit of a mid-century, mid-15th century armor with a little bit of the arms that you just saw. So even without the vestibule that is going to be covering my shoulders, it's actually a pretty good system. Now, you may actually get a munition grade armor that doesn't fully fit you just because you may have another armor hand-me-down for someone else. Not all armors are actually made for you because, they're quite expensive. So even then, these armors are obviously way too long for me. The forearm guard is actually supposed to be a 2-inch or something like that above your wrist, just so you have really good mobility. But then again, the point is that we're testing these arms out to see how they actually function. So what I'm going to do is, even if I have to put on my 15th century, late 15th century gauntlet, like that, like these, and then of course these are obviously tournaments. These are obviously how come I get that? Tournament mittens, just because there's an extra plate. So even with this, I still get pretty good mobility. You can move really nicely. The arms itself is actually not that heavy. Once again, I can still bend pretty nicely. They don't interrupt me yet. Good movement up. Good movement down. And they still feel really good. I think without the gauntlet or without them being wrong, I could probably do everything else that I need to do if, they were actually properly, even if they're not properly fitted. For wax fighting, have that, can do that. Hey. So, now what I'm very curious about, why did I actually put this on? It's because I'm curious, can you typically form in an archer position with this on? So, just moving that, I'm getting quite winded just because I haven't done armor in a while. And armor inherently are just pretty heavy things. Most of them, they go to about 55 pounds, all the way to maybe about 80 pounds. There's more, there's less, but that's just a range. So, what I'm curious is that how does the draw actually work? So, I actually don't have a bow, just because I enjoy the close range, quick combat. So when it comes to long range, I just don't collect them. However, the owner of these arms are going to be an archer. So what if he used these? Can he shoot the bow? So let's just say, I'm going to take one of my gauntlet off, because I don't think you can draw a bow with a mini gauntlet, but I'm sure if it's a finger gauntlet, you shouldn't have any issue. So, archer position, straight. I'm gonna, from here, full draw. Looks good. My hand is still touching my chin. Release. Once again, so I'm gonna grab an arrow. I don't know how to grab it. Other side, or I'm not sure, a lot of the arrows actually still gonna grab, I think. Pull one, I can still see the notch. Put it on my hook. Draw, release. Or, if I have to actually do an English longbow where I actually swing my leg back. Let's try that. So, one here, swing leg back. I'm gonna arch my way forward, pull back, engage my back, release. Still works really nicely. So, even with the arms in place and 1 minute gauntlet on something like a hat that I have to throw, I could still aim. Even with this S18 armet on, I can still see really well. Archers would not have helmet, even this encumbered, because they would actually want full visions. So they probably might only have like a cap or something like that. But what I'm trying to say is that even in armor, when you're doing very delicate tasks in the battlefield, armor could actually be used very many different situations. It's not just for jousting, not just for horseback, not just for archery. You have to do everyday stuff in your suit. So, in any case, just a quick little thing to prove a point that these arms, which doesn't match my set, can still prove very functional, very useful. And for my own little experiment, can you pull a bow with your arms on? Well, I mean, just by me doing that, amazing. And of course, I can still do a whole bunch of stuff myself, and it'll still be amazing. So, once again, thank you guys for watching, and eventually I will do a full video of me putting this entire suit on with my actual own arms in. That has the borders of blades. Thank you again, guys, and I'll see you again next time. For funsies, I'm gonna take a video of me taking this off. So, I've actually armed myself in this, and it's actually very tiring just to freeze up my armor. I already undid the cannons. Now, the next part is that I have to get a chest plate out. So, I actually don't have my belt with me, and I just left it in my fencing bag. I have it with me, and I was like, oh no, I don't need it, bring it back inside. And so it's just in my, oh, there you go. It's in my garage. However, I just use a twine for now, it's good enough. So, this is the part where people say, I don't know how to get it off. You can get off like overhead style. I just kind of reach here, struggle for my life, find this little buckle, open it, pull it with my dear life, get that off, and it opens like this. So from here, hold on to one side. I don't like to lift my chest plate over my head because I scratched my face so many times and it's absolutely daunting. So these are not my arms, I'm going to be very careful. And they come off. Anyways, a lot of times I actually cut my arms in the actual jacket itself because I hate tying it on and off. But you know, when you have to clean your jacket, you should do that because they smell really bad. So in that case, that's how I get it off. Usually helmets, you stitch it, legs comes off. The most trickiest part about arming yourself is actually how do you keep these arms on while you put that cuirass on? Well, the trick is that put in your spotter, put in your rear base, keep your arms nice and flexed, throw your cuirass on, tie yourself in, and then after you do your helmet first, because of course helmet-wise it's just very simple. Now, putting on your helmet is not difficult. The only tricky part is remember, the arms doesn't want to bend more than 90 degrees because of mobility restrictions, which is a positive to you. And so of course you throw this on first. After you do all that, after you plug it in, of course, then you want to do your arms later on. So from here, just simply that. And of course now, that. So of course, you can still see actually really well. So you can still kind of get into your buckle strap because your visor allows you to see really well. Unless you have a adjusting visor, then wow, you should get friends to help you. So oftentimes you don't really arm yourself by yourself anyway, but in modern times when we don't really have a lot of friends helping us, then that's how it is. Well, I hope you guys like the extra blooper as well. Yes, I did tie my jacket to my pants because I have nothing else and I'm wearing a work t-shirt underneath. You pull this off! I'm gonna clean the arms before I give it to my friend because it's sweaty.